Welcome to Illinois Beach State Park. This is a remarkable and unique place in Illinois. You may be familiar with the park for its beach, campground, and hiking trails, but there's much more here than meets the eye. Hi, I'm Bill Wengelewski, and I'm a naturalist, which means I study and teach people about natural ecosystems. I'll be your guide on this fine fall day as we explore the rich and dramatic natural history of this park. We'll go on a journey through a diverse ecosystem teeming with life, and you won't believe what we'll see. Dunes, prairies, forests, all within a 1-mile walk from the lake. We'll meet some hardy pioneers and some unusual residents you might not expect to see here in Illinois. So, let's get going. The story of Illinois Beach State Park is the story of what happens when water, a lot of water, meets land and kicks off a complex cycle of interactions among plants and animals. It's this interaction between the natural forces of wind, water, land, and living things that has created the landscape you see around you. Our journey begins here in the waves of Lake Michigan. The water you see around me is just a drop in the bucket compared to the size of this freshwater giant. How big is this lake? Well, first off, it's the largest freshwater lake within the borders of the United States, and it's the 5th largest freshwater lake in the world. At present, the lake is 307 miles long, 118 miles wide, and it's 925 feet deep. Now that's a lot of water. So what's all this water do when it meets the land? On a day like today, it's hard to imagine that this water does much. But come on a stormy day, and you'll get a sense of the lake's power. Lake Michigan is the primary actor in this ecosystem, and in a sense, the history of the lake is the history of the park. The lake is a remnant of ancient geologic events. It's a leftover of a giant glacier that covered this area between about 12,000 and 17,000 years ago. When it melted, it left behind a lake and natural materials, mostly sands, clays, and rock. Over time, these formed the beaches and dunes, with, of course, the help of wind and waves. Today, Lake Michigan continues to shape the land around it. Beaches and dunes began forming here 3,700 years before the present time, and are still being formed here today. They are the basis of all the habitats in the park. How, you say? Come on down here, I'll show you. Feel that soft, gentle breeze coming off Lake Michigan? Soft? Gentle? Not exactly. If we were grains of sand, that wind wouldn't feel so gentle. Let's look at this from the sand's point of view. What's it really like down here? Tough, that's what it's like. How would you like to be blown about by 30-mile-an-hour winds? For a dune to grow, it needs 3 things: wind, sand, and vegetation. Winds blow across the water and onto the beach. Bigger grains of sand and gravel may stay put at the water's edge, but finer grains of sand are no match for the winds. They skip and bounce along the beach until, boom, they collide with something. It could be small, a piece of driftwood or a small sprig of grass, and as more sand gathers, a small mound forms. But I've neglected to mention the key that makes this mound of sand stable and triggers the development of a whole ecosystem. Pioneers. No, not people pioneers. Pioneer plants, like these lime and marram grasses and sea rocket. Why are these plants known as pioneer plants? Well, people who are pioneers are the first to do something, like move to a new territory. It's the same for plants. These pioneer grasses are tough and hardy. They have to be. I don't know about you, but the last time I checked, there weren't a lot of nutrients in a mound of sand. The grasses have long roots that reach down to the water table underground, where they can absorb enough water to survive. As they grow, their root systems form an inner structure that helps stabilize the dune, and the dune grows larger as more sand accumulates around the grasses. This is the beginning of a whole natural cycle, pretty good for an ordinary looking grass. You see, pioneer plants cause changes where they live. They make the dune a better place for other plants to grow. Pioneer plants support animal communities. This in turn helps enrich the soil and allows even larger plants, like shrubs and even trees, to take root. Over the course of decades, a grassy dune like this can become an oak forest. This process of plant habitats and communities changing over time is called plant succession. Here at Illinois Beach State Park, we can see several distinct stages of plant succession in the areas between the beach and the oak forest. Why? Just after the glaciers melted 12,000 years ago, the lake was considerably larger and had a slightly different shape. Over the years, lake levels have periodically dropped. These dropping lake levels have revealed more and more beach over time. Each time water levels drop, a new cycle of plant succession begins. In fact, 300 years ago, the beach was in the area that is now the oak forest. This gradual dropping of the lake's water levels has allowed the development of the many different stages of plant succession seen in the park. Let's have a look at some of them now. We've just seen how the plant succession cycle begins on the beach. And as we've said, it's a pretty tough environment to make a living in. Imagine trying to make your home amidst this blowing wind, constant wave action, shifting sand, few nutrients, and the hot, baking sun. The first tier of dunes away from the beach is known as the foredune. The foredune is the first foothold plants can make on the shore. It's still a tough place to make a living, but for a few species of plants it offers just enough resources to allow survival. Just what would other plants need to survive on this foredune? Well, what would you take if you were going to spend a day at the beach? Shade and food. It's the same for plants. Well, not exactly the same. Plants don't eat sandwiches or bask under umbrellas. But plants do need nutrients from the ground, and they need shade from the hot sun. The pioneer plants, just by growing on the foredune, help to provide these. The grasses create shade from the sun with their tall shaft-like leaves. They also add nutrients to the sand as their leaves and other parts decay. So the pioneer plants on the foredune pave the way for a whole different type of plant community to move in. And over time, a foredune becomes a sand prairie. This sand prairie used to be a foredune. Look how it's changed. Increased nutrients in the sand are almost beginning to form a layer of humus or soil. Animals like the western fox snake seek the shelter the sand prairie plants provide. But the most noticeable sign of change in this habitat is that there are more species of plants here. Look at this horizontal juniper. Its woody branches help to stabilize the dune even more. And check out this bearberry. It's usually found in the Arctic, but here it is at Illinois Beach, adapted to this environment because of the cooling effect of the lake. What happens next? The plants of the sand prairie pave the way for more plant communities to move in by providing more shade and more nutrients. And then it's not a sand prairie anymore, it's a savanna. This area used to be a sand prairie. Here on the savanna, we can look for lots of the same kind of plants. But look for more stable dunes, more soil, larger shrubs and taller grasses like Indian grass. Keep an eye out for white-tailed deer that find plenty of food to eat in the woody plants and grasses. And there's another surprising resident. This one's not from the Arctic, but from out west. The prickly pear cactus. Ouch! Cactus in Illinois? You bet. The lakefront savanna's climate and sandy soil provide a perfect habitat for them to thrive. As more years pass, a savanna will develop into an open oak forest. We've just reached the open oak forest habitat. To make an oak forest, tiny oak saplings take root in the savanna soil. As they grow, their branches and leaves provide even more shade and nutrients, the equivalent of hundreds of beach umbrellas and even more coolers. At this time of year, many trees lose their leaves. A thick layer of soil accumulates as the tree leaves decay. And underground, the oak's roots make the dunes super stable. In spring and summer, many small flowers and plants grow here. It's a lush, rich environment. A beautiful place to live, wouldn't you say? Well, we're not the only ones who think so. Raccoons and squirrels, deer and coyote, and lots of birds like bluebirds make their homes here. This is the final stage of plant succession that we see here in the park. Just think, hundreds of years from now, our relatively bare foredune may be as lush a habitat as this oak forest. There are other habitats here in the park. Wetlands. In addition to small ponds and marshes, there's an unusual body of water. It's the Dead River, and it doesn't quite live up to its name. First of all, it's not really a river. And secondly, it's not dead at all. For part of the year, it's a pond that's separated from the lake by sandbars. But when the pond water levels are high, the water breaks through the sandbar and flows into the lake. At all times, the Dead River teems with life. Look and listen for frogs and insects that live near this water, and watch for birds flying in and out of the pond in search of food. Okay, so let's get back to the beginning, Lake Michigan. On our journey, we've explored wetlands, an open oak forest, a savanna, a sand prairie, a foredune, and now we're back on the beach where seagulls in turn search for food and waves roll to shore. This is the story of plant succession, and in turn it's also the story behind what we see at Illinois Beach State Park. We've traveled through centuries of ecological history, all within a 1-mile walk, and that's not all you can find here. We have hundreds of campsites, a resort, and education programs which will help you learn more about this unique place. Look up. You may see birds migrating through one of North America's busiest flyways. Enjoy a picnic, ride our bike paths, hike through the habitats on our nature trails, and keep your eyes peeled. You never know what you'll see. But please stay on marked trails. Walking on or sunbathing in the dunes can destroy decades of ecological history by eroding the dunes and injuring the fragile plants. The beach ridges and dunes of Illinois Beach State Park are the only dunes left in Illinois. This beach and dune environment, once widespread on the Illinois shoreline of Lake Michigan, is now restricted to the 7 miles of park here. So enjoy your visit to Illinois Beach State Park, where natural history is made every day.